Arsalan Iftikhar joins me now live via Skype from Sterling in Virginia. He's a human rights lawyer and journalist. Good to have you with us again on the programme, Mr. Iftikhar. Scuffles, bundled into a car, whereabouts unknown. Seems like the normal modus operandi for the Secret Service of Pakistan.
Yeah, Sohail, sadly, what we've seen here today with the kidnapping of Pakistani journalist Matiullah Jan is something that we've been seeing in Pakistan for decades. I think it's important to keep in mind that, when it comes to press freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of the press in Pakistan, this is not exclusive to the current government of Imran Khan. It happened with the government of Nawaz Sharif before him and the government of Benazir Bhutto before him. And so sadly, because of sort of Pakistan's lack of, separation of powers and checks and balances, the military, the ISI, the Inter-Services Intelligence, which is the Pakistani version of the CIA, really has been cracking down on journalists, so much so that, Reporters Without Borders has ranked Pakistan 145th out of 180 countries in the world in terms of press freedom, and the Committee to Protect Journalists has ranked them as the 8th worst country in the world when it comes to press freedoms.
So in terms of the practicality of being a journalist in Pakistan, just for our international audience, I mean, I would say that to be a journalist and to talk about politics, the military, India and the likes in Pakistan requires a journalist with credibility. And to have that credibility, you have to have contacts within the armed services, the military and the Secret Service. The challenge is how impartial and how fine a line you can balance as a journalist by getting the information you want without owing a favour to those that are giving you that information, and they are, of course, from those agencies.
Absolutely, Sohail. And that's an issue that journalists around the world, as you know, have to deal with when it comes to access, right? And so if you're trying to get access to, high-level government agencies who essentially have impunity within the society when it comes to disappearing journalists, the Committee to Protect Journalists has found that 62 journalists have been murdered in Pakistan since the early 90s, and 34 of them are still missing today. And so just like America needs to deal with systemic racism, Pakistan needs to deal with a systemic lack of free speech and press freedom.
And part of that is due to basically the institutions, i.e. the military and its Secret Service. This is a country predominantly controlled by the military since independence in 1947. They're entrenched in all areas of everyday life in Pakistan. I've reported from there extensively. They are a hard act, you might say, to have their tentacles cut. And I keep saying tentacles because you have to actually experience it in Pakistan to understand how they influence every part of normal life. And successive democratically elected governments have found it very difficult to instigate their own power in that country because of what's already there.
You're absolutely right, Sohail, and that's why it rests on the shoulder of Prime Minister Imran Khan. At the end of the day, with such a strong military and such a strong intelligence apparatus, Pakistan has a strong executive head. That's why we've had 5 military dictators. And so Imran Khan, if he decides, part of his campaign, push was that he was going to stamp out corruption, right? Obviously, everybody knows that he's the most famous Pakistani to ever live. So the financial corruption is something that he might not feel any sort of draw from. But when it comes to power, again, if he's really trying to help build Pakistan, not only for his own tenure, but for decades and centuries, as a country, on the upswing, it's going to be his responsibility to find not only Matiullah Jan, but also to, allow for more press freedom in the country in order to become a better society for everyone.
Well, for the moment, we'll leave it there, but we just got word that the journalist Matiullah Jan has been released. That's good news. I'm sure we'll get more on that in our later news bulletins. For the moment, though, Arsalan Iftikhar, thanks for joining us from the US.
Thank you, Sohail.
Now, Thailand has been relatively